This is the GTX 1070 ROG Strix edition. Featuring a custom 3-fan design, RGB customization and higher clock speeds, this aims to be the ultimate GTX 1070. But is it? I threw this into the test PC to find out. So then, the GTX 1070, Nvidia's latest card to feature the 70 series badge, and the 70 series is more traditionally price performance but can also run the latest and greatest games at the highest end settings and at the highest end resolutions. And this Asus ROG Strix edition aims to be the best of the bunch, and it will do so with a 3-fan design. These fans don't actually spin until you get to a medium end or high-end load on your graphics card, and it's a very nice design. It's also very big, so those of you with smaller cases with a shorter amount of clearance, especially you guys with micro ATX or ITX, may want to double check before you have a look at this that this is actually going to fit. But overall, it's a very nice striking design, and of course that's before you turn it on and see those LEDs. In terms of I/O, you'll find 2 display ports, 1 DVI, 2 HDMI, and then your SLI fingers. Strix Edition logos can be found all over the card, with a Republic of Gamers logo that is illuminated on the top, along with an 8-pin power connector. Note that this does differ from the GTX 1080, which features an 8-pin and a 6-pin. Move around the back of the card and you'll find the Republic of Gamers logo sitting very loudly and proudly, and this features full RGB customization that can be customized in the Aura software. And you'll also find a very strong backplate, and this should stop you from getting any of that horrible GPU sag. And on a card like this that's this big and heavy, I definitely think this is a necessity. But regardless, it's a very good looking card on both the front and on the back, and if you have a way of showing this off, it's going to look great. A nice addition as well is on the side of the card you'll find 2 fan headers that can be used to control your case fans in relation to your GPU temperature. Once you do have this thing in your case and you've got it plugged in, then you get the nice customizability of those full RGB LEDs. So you have customizability on the Republic of Gamers logos on the top and on the bottom of the cards, as well as the LEDs near the fans. And this is all controlled with the Aura graphics card software. It's very easy to use, it's very simple and gets the job done nicely, but maybe it would be nice to have a few more effects, but I think there are plenty of effects here for most people. But what about games? Well, to get us started, let's look at Unigine Valley, and as you can see here running the Extreme HD preset, the GTX 980 is suffering massive losses to the GTX 1070. This really is a much higher performing card than the GTX 980 and slots between the R9 Fury and the 1080. Moving on to Hitman, shows that if you want to play at 1080p at 1440p, this card should give you all the performance you need. If you do want a little bit more, then of course the GTX 1080 is going to give you just that, but unless you're running a 4K monitor or a 1440p 144Hz monitor, you're not really gaining anything by using a GTX 1080, mainly in minimum frame rates. Moving on to Gears of War Ultimate Edition and cranking up the resolutions, show that actually the GTX 1070 slots nicely between the Fury and the 1080. 4K, yes, you're going to get a playable experience that's not quite as smooth as you would with a 1080, but once again, this is a much cheaper card, and comparing it against the 980 shows massive differences. The same pattern continues when looking at Cry Primal. The GTX 1080 shows that at 1440p you're getting more than playable experiences. If you do want to get that minimum of 60 frames per second at 1440p, you can lower a couple of settings, but if you do want to play this at 4K, then a 1070 definitely is cutting it very fine. Those wanting to play at 30 frames per second with a controller may well be okay, but those wanting the highest frame rates at the highest settings will need a 1080. Moving on to our final game in the test suite, shows that at 1440p this is such a solid performer. Ultra settings, no GameWorks, this can even run 4K with minimal fuss with an average of 50 frames a second. And so I think this just goes to show, if you are a gamer that wants to play 1440p, this is one of the best options out there, because you can go and spend more on a 1080 but you're not really going to be able to access all of that power at the present time, especially if you only have a 60Hz monitor. Now it's worth noting that all these cards are automatically overclockable with the GPU tweak technology by setting them to the OC mode in the GPU tweak software, and this is what all these results were obtained by, because Asus sends out all the GTX 1070 and 1080 blah 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 review samples with this enabled, but this should be easy enough for you to recreate. So there we go, the GTX 1070, a card that is really impressive if you do want to do some 1440p gaming. The main problem really that I have with this card is just its sheer size. This is something that a lot of these cards do share, and if you don't want to go for the Founders Edition, you are getting a bigger card. And with the Strix Edition, you're getting 2 HDMI rather than 3 display ports. So if you do want to run 3 G-Sync monitors, you won't be able to do this off a single card. But yeah, it's a really impressive card for 1440p gamers. Those wanting 4K will need SLI or look really to a GTX 1080 for better results. But overall, this is a solid card and a great addition, which is why it wins the PC Centric Top Purchase Award. Do note that prices do seem to be slightly inflated at the moment, but hopefully they should go down very quickly. I hope you've enjoyed this video. A massive thank you to Asus for providing the review sample, Corsair for sponsoring the channel, and if you do want to see more GPU reviews, you can find the GTX 1080 review in the top right hand corner, and subscribe for more videos. Like the video if you liked it, dislike if you didn't, leave a comment, and I'll see you in the next one.